Good morning, my friends. Grim here, and welcome to 10-Minute Deck Techs. I hope you enjoy this new style of video format. We are here featuring green-white Threshgeddon, sometimes known as Terrageddon. I will explain the difference momentarily, but in short, if you like monstrously large green threats and blowing up everybody's lands, no survivors left behind, you have come to the right place. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you, of course, to everybody who supports this content in any way, shape, or form. And let's talk about this wonderful, powerful, majestic deck in Premodern, see exactly what it is up to. Let's go. Couple quick points before we dive into the details. The Terrageddon deck's proper play Scroll Rack and Land Tax, which is a very powerful synergy, but not one we are featuring here in this list. And this list more properly known as Threshgeddon, even though it doesn't roll off the tongue as nicely due to the preeminence of threshold threats. Another quick point is that both the Terrageddon and the Threshgeddon decks, for that matter, don't have to stay straight up green-white like this one is. They can go all the way up to 5 colors, based largely on the mana fixing provided by Mox Diamond and Weathered Wayfarer, among other things. But this list, honest to goodness, straight up green-white, Threshgeddon. What is it up to? Let's get into it. So it is a 26 land deck, and we're going to come back to talk about this land base in detail because it really merits that. And 4 Mox Diamond. So right away, half of the cards in the 60 card main deck are mana sources. That should tell you something right then and there. It tells you that we're dedicated to making land drops and that we are depending on our lands, usually in some way, to win the game for us. And we'll really explain why as we go through the list. But just to start that off structurally, and I just have to really point out how powerful Mox Diamond is, not just generally, but in this list in particular. Almost every spell we play synergizes in some way with Mox Diamond. But we'll come back to that a bit later. Getting into the non-mana sources, 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares. It is the premier removal in Premodern. It is one of the major reasons to be white. And it's actually the only 1-for-1 spell-based interaction we play main deck. We're kind of a deck that is wanting to be proactive, wanting to do our thing, wanting to have higher card quality than the opponent and attack them on axes they're not prepared to recover from adequately. But Plow is just a nod to the fact that creatures exist. We gotta pay a little bit of respect to what the opponent is up to, but not much. The 1-drop slot is rounded out by some really fascinating threats. Weathered Wayfarer, 1/1-for-1 with an activated ability, that searches your library for a land card, reveals it, puts it into your hand, then you shuffle. You activate only if an opponent controls more lands than you. So right away, we see the Mox Diamond synergies. We can be operating with 2 mana sources, for example, with a Mox Diamond and a Forest. And the opponent, like a scrub, has to have 2 lands, which walks right into our Weathered Wayfarer, allows us repeated card advantage and card selection. And remember, we have 26 lands to choose from, 17 of which are utility lands. So Weathered Wayfarer, totally crazy in this deck, and it's on a body. It's a 1/1 that can turn sideways to help win the game, which after all is how we win. And speaking of 1/1s that turn sideways, Nimble Mongoose actually becomes a 3/3 in short order in this deck, thanks to how quickly we fill up our graveyard for Threshold. That's once again some extra Mox Diamond synergy, because of course, when you're playing Mox Diamond, you're sacrificing, or rather you are discarding a land. Sometimes if you have a spare diamond in hand and no land to discard, you can even just play it, sacrifice it, and fuel Threshold that way. But Mongoose a 3/3-for-1 in this deck most of the time, and with Shroud, very difficult for the opponent to interact with. Mulch is an interesting one, my friends. Reveal the top 4, put all land cards into your hand, the rest in your graveyard. This, on average, in a 26 land deck is going to put 2 cards in the bin for Threshold and 2 cards into your hand as a 2-for-1. And that by itself is a pretty good baseline. Of course, sometimes you're going to totally whiff on the mulch and just bin 4 cards. Sometimes it's a 2-mana draw 4, but it's a fascinating card, and with our utility lands being so powerful, you can see why it's here as a 3 of. Sylvan Library for some grinding power. It fits well in the deck because we generally lack selection, and we're only a 2-color deck, so our mana is not that painful, making Library a pretty good fit. Werebear is kind of like Mox Diamond, in that it is a mana source that is not on a land, so when the whole board gets Armageddon, you're still operational. And it's kind of like Mongoose in that it is a big, undercosted threshold threat. 4/4 for 2, once your graveyard is operational. And speaking of undercosted green fatties, Terravor, the namesake card of kind of the umbrella term of Terrageddon. 3 mana with Trample. Power and toughness equal to the number of land cards in all graveyards. So, unlike Werebear and Mongoose, who suffer greatly at the hands of one-sided graveyard hate like Tormod's Crypt, Terravor does not. You're blowing up your opponent's lands with Armageddon and Wasteland to Cataclysm, to say nothing of their own fetch lands and other effects. Terravor, very, very hard to stop. And if they haven't managed to interact with your graveyard, this thing gets into the double digits very easily. At the top end, we've got Armageddon, of course, as a 3 of, destroying all lands. We've all been there, we all know and love it, or do we? Well, depends on what side of that you're on, basically, but Cataclysm as a 2 of is very interesting. Each player chooses from among the permanents they control an artifact. Hey, kinda like Mox Diamond. A creature. Well, I have a Terravor. An enchantment? Hey, there's my Sylvan Library, and a land, take your pick, then sacrifices the rest. So, obviously our deck is constructed to really maximize Cataclysm, and we really punish the opponent, not only for blowing up most of their lands, but also for doing mostly or exclusively one thing, like playing all creatures, or playing Enchantress or Mud or something like that. We lack interaction for those types of unusual permanents, especially in the main deck. Cataclysm, our big catch-up card, and a big payoff for everything else we're up to. You know, I had to come back to this land base in detail. Windswept Heath is gonna fuel our threshold and fix our mana. 3 forests, 2 plains. We're opting for Portal. Hey, we've got a Riftstone Portal in the deck. Name synergy is on point. I love the art generally, and also it suits the deck really well. This plains in particular, a great green-white option that kind of belies the storm to come. But Wasteland ×4, remember, you can tutor all these utility lands with Weathered Wayfarer. You break the synergy, it's +2/+2 to Terravor. It's just so good. Tranquil Thicket and Secluded Steppe as 3 ofs. These are kind of 1-mana draw spells that you can tutor for, and they're built in Flood Insurance, and they fuel Threshold. You can even bounce them with Rith's Grove for a redraw if you had to play them early game. Treetop Village ×2, can't leave home without it, it's too good in the format. Nantuko Monastery is a very interesting creature land that supplements the Treetop Beatdown plan. Core Haven as a 1 of defensive, again, tutorable utility land, very nice when you're on the back foot or against a single big threat. Dust Bowl is more of a wasteland effect, and Riftstone Portal is the very best Armageddon victim you could ask for. We're just skimming the sideboard here, my friends, because this is where you have the most flexibility, but note that Enlightened Tutor pairs well with many of our effects like Seal of Cleansing, Circle of Protection Red, Cursed Totem, Defense Grid, and Tormod's Crypt, because you can side in those tutors, thereby finding those hate cards more easily, or indeed some of the main deck tutor targets we're already playing. In addition to all of that stuff, we've got Array of Revelation, we've got Orem's Chant ×2, and we've got a Gigapede, which is a nice, grindy option. But you could go a million different directions with the sideboard. Just the idea here is, of course, we're answering the expected meta, and we're sticking to our plan A of green fatties and blown up lands. Thank you very much for watching, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this 10-minute deck tech format, and I hope you get the chance to play some Threshgeddon or indeed some Terrageddon. It is insanely powerful, insanely fun, and fascinating to pilot. Very rewarding stuff. Leave your comments below on the list and on anything else you'd like to share. Until then, my friends, take care, and I'll see you for the next video.